First, let's start with this case. I, 32F, have always wanted to have my own home, as many of us have. However, my husband isn't entirely on board. It's not that he doesn't want a house. He talks about how nice it would be to have more space, to have a large backyard to garden, more rooms for our kids to play, and us to maybe even have an extra room to use. But he will not make decisions. Almost every big life decision we've had, he won't weigh in on. We need another car. What kind should we get? I get answers of why this kind is good because ABC, this kind is bad because XYZ, but he refuses to tell me what he wants. So I buy the car I think works best. And if it turns out to be a poor decision or something breaks on it, then he just tells me why he would have chosen something different. Same with properties we've decided to rent. I'm finally in a place where it's financially feasible to buy a house. But I can't get his buy-in on anything. He won't tell me which houses he likes or doesn't like, just gives me pros and cons of each without working with me on it. This has been ongoing for nearly 3 years, and I'm tired of it. We have 3 kids, 7F, 5M, and are living in a 2BR apartment currently. The 2 older kids share a room, and the younger one is in our bedroom. We are running out of space and will eventually need something bigger, and we currently have the opportunity. I can buy a home I like, with room for all of us, with just my income and credit right now. Since he won't give me any input in either direction, I'm halfway considering just doing the house search buying process on my own and telling him he can join if he wants. But I can't tell if that's just a dickish way to go about it. So, am I in the wrong if I just went ahead and bought a house I know we can afford, with only my money and credit score, without his input since he refuses to give it? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. My dad was the same way to my mom, basically forcing her to make all the decisions, while he held the right to criticize the decision if it turned out less than ideal. Think long and hard. If this is the long-term marriage you want, and then act accordingly. You're not in the wrong. But I think you owe it to yourself to give him one last chance. I am going to buy a house. Either give an opinion and join in the process or stay out the way, and no recriminations. You're not in the wrong, but I do think you should give it at least a try first. Hon, we really need to be thinking about moving into a house. I found a realtor and am planning to start looking at houses. I'd love for you to weigh in and participate, but I'm planning on doing it either way. And see how he reacts. It at least shouldn't be a secret that you're doing it. Next up, so we, me, F53, and my partner, M57, took our collective kids out for dinner tonight. My partner paid the bill, and as usual paid on our joint account. He sometimes picks the bill up himself, but more often it's the joint account that gets used. On the way home, his daughter and her boyfriend made a point of thanking him directly for the meal, and he acknowledged saying something along the lines of, "You're welcome," or "No problem." I didn't say anything in front of the kids, but when home I checked he'd used the joint account. And when he confirmed he had, I asked why he'd not corrected the kids, that it wasn't just him that had paid. He went off at me for ruining a good night and that I was being picky about paying the bill, completely missing my point. My point wasn't about money, it was about him taking the credit and not correcting the kids. I just see that as a common courtesy. He sees me as being unreasonable and bringing up something best left unsaid. So am I in the wrong here? Should I have just let it go? Let's start judging. You're in the wrong, at least from my many years married point of view. When we take the kids, siblings, whoever, out to dinner, we always use our joint card, and whichever one of us pays doesn't matter. When whoever we've bought dinner for says thank you, the response is simply, "You're welcome," not, "Don't just thank me. It's a joint account, so thank him too." You're being too sensitive here. You're in the wrong. If you wanted some credit and are that petty to be bothered by it, you could have mentioned it in conversation when they thanked your partner. Like, "No problem, y'all. We're happy to treat you every now and then. I'm glad you enjoyed it." Waiting just to pick a silly fight later is dumb. You're in the wrong. His was a completely normal response to them. It's not like it was an extended conversation describing where the money came from. It's literally just, "Thanks for dinner. You're welcome, kids." Good chance that if you are a family with sufficiently joint finances to have a joint account, then the kids don't see an important difference even. If I paid for dinner, they'd just assume it's shared money, even though they'd thank me as the one you made the decision to give them a free meal, because that's just the normal thing to do. You're making out like he went around town giving interviews about how generous he is and how he did it all on his own. It just doesn't need to be corrected. And if you feel that put out by it, which itself suggests you're self-important anyway, then bloody well do it yourself, mother. Then sulk when he didn't do it on your behalf. He's not a mind reader. Understand the kids weren't thanking him for transferring cash from a specific account. They were thanking him for the gift of a free meal. I think it should be widely understood to be directed at you both by default if you both paid. It'd be rude to ask first, which account did you use, Dad, before saying thank you? And simply doesn't need to be said. Next up, first and most importantly, I'm not here for legal advice. I'm here to see if I'm the idiot. Second, this is my property that I have a mortgage on. It's not community or city property. This past winter, I had a pool installed at my house. After the pool installation, I had my old fence removed and installed new fences that met with the city code for a residential pool. My new fence is higher than my old one, and the gates have approved locks. About a month ago, I had to travel for work and was gone for about 2 weeks. I came back to find my backyard trashed, and it seems someone had a pool party while I was gone. The locks on my gates were broken, but luckily no one broke into my house. I checked my security cameras and saw at least 20 teens having an all-day party that lasted late into the night. I did not give permission for anyone to be at my house, so I was mad. My cameras are HD, so their faces were clearly visible, and I recognized some from the neighborhood. I went to the police and submitted a copy of the recordings and tried to file a report. The cops did their best to try to talk me out of it, but I pressed them on it until they relented and took a report. Weeks passed by and I heard nothing, so I called them to find out nothing has been done. I got angry and threatened to sue unless they got off their behinds and enforced the laws. I should point out, I live in a town of about 2,000 people, and nothing ever happens here. The cops are not understaffed or too busy on other cases. I also know I probably can't sue the cops into doing their jobs, but I lose nothing by threatening a lawsuit, and I was mad at the time. Finally, they got some of the teens seen on my security video, but again, they tried to talk me out of pressing charges. I was adamant and insist they file charges. When my girlfriend found out about the situation, she said I should have let it go, and we got into an argument about it. My own mother thinks I'm being a bully by forcing the cops to file charges against some teens who just wanted to throw a party. Virtually everyone I know is making me out to be some grumpy guy with a score to settle. And I kid you not, everyone in my life is trying to talk me out of it. They're worried about me destroying these teens' future over a pool party. I don't know when it became okay to break into someone's property. Right now, it feels like it's me against the entire world. Update: I'm so glad I posted my situation here. Many of you pointed out that the cops might know the kids, so that's why they're dragging the case. I never thought of that because I've only lived here for 2 years. You all opened my eyes. I called my buddy who grew up and still live here, so I invited him to dinner tonight. I asked him about my situation and showed him my security vid. He immediately said about half of the HS senior class was in the vid. His kids are in the same HS, and he recognized the daughter and niece of the mayor. He also told me he thinks a couple of the kids belong to the local prominent families, one of which own one of the local grocery stores. We talked about it, and I decided to take your advice and drop my complaint in exchange for the parents paying the damages. I'll call the cops tomorrow about it. There is a post below about someone's uncle living in Oklahoma who made a complaint and subsequently got pulled over repeatedly for phantom traffic violations. That really opened my eyes, and I definitely do not want that to happen to me. Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. Trespassing, destruction of property, thankfully no one drowned or was injured. And F the police for not doing their jobs. You're not in the wrong, or a bully for enforcing your property rights. You're not in the wrong, OP. That's your property. You are paying for it. Those entitled little jerks thought they'd help themselves to it since you weren't around and trashed your property after breaking into your backyard. I'm not saying these kids need jail time, but they need to learn that actions have consequences. A fine or community service is a good way to make sure they understand it's not okay to help themselves to others' property just because they want it. I'd absolutely do the same thing, and I'm not even a grumpy old man. You're not in the wrong. They damaged your property. They should face consequences. And it's disgusting that the police tried to talk you out of filing charges, or even filing the complaint in the first place. That's literally their job. Makes me wonder if these cops also harass minorities to meet their arrest quotas. Next up, for context, my girlfriend is getting her yoga certifications and is hosting a free class for the public today. So the night before I went to bed, understanding that we just had to be there before 10 a.m. So I went on a morning walk with my buddy who just had a baby to grab a coffee and stroll his daughter around. I left the house at 8:30 a.m. dressed ready for yoga so we could leave when I got back. Come 9:20, she's starting to text me. And I can notice she's starting to freak out and asking where I'm at. But I was confused because I knew I had enough time to get back home and drive to the studio. I start rushing back home, but I get texts on the walk back saying stuff like, "How could you do this to me? I'm so stressed out," and other things of the sort. But get back at 9:35-ish to hop in the car and go. While on the car ride, she's crying and saying stuff like, "Why can't you think? This is like a job interview. I needed to be there 30 minutes early, and that I'm throwing her teaching rhythm off." But I had no idea she needed any of that, and says I need to be assumptive of her needs while she framed this as a casual yoga event. I was also thrown off since I didn't start the class until 11:45, and she had to be there earlier. So the ask of just getting there before 10 seemed like that already allotted for the prep time she'd need beforehand. We get there at 9:50, and she is still crying and asking, "Why can't you just think?" And I tell her that I really had no idea of the additional requirements, and really have no idea what to say because I got us there before 10. All I could say is, we're going in a loop and wasting time since the conversation argument goes in the same direction, and we should focus on being here and moving on for now so we could get her yoga done and revisit it after she's done. I started feeling like an idiot when she wanted my support to get her back in the groove, but would also ask why I was the victim. And I told her that I really don't feel like I did anything wrong, since she never specified that this was a critical class, and never mentioned that she wanted to be extra early, since she had the chance to let me know the night before and right before my walk to give me proper times and expectations. I feel since I got us there before 10, she's overreacting. I just don't know how to proceed or what to say when I see her later in class and when I come back to pick her up. Let's start judging. I don't know. You had to rush to get her there at 9:50. What time would you haven't gotten there if she hadn't rushed you? If I were nervous about something super important to me, I'd want to be early to set up and center myself. I think you just added extra stress on a day that was already a lot emotionally. Either way, communicating about these kinds of expectations helps. So next time you know to ask how early. And she knows to communicate that to you. No one is in the wrong, unless it keeps happening over and over. She shovels communicated better. But making a casual plan immediately before a necessary event does cause extra pressure and stress. You rushed home and made it there by 9:50. If you hadn't rushed, or if she hadn't rushed you, I don't see how you would have even made the agreed-upon time of before 10. I'd say you ATA. It sounds like this place was a 15 to 20-minute drive away, and considering that if you're the teacher, you have to show up early, you should have known that. Any yoga class that I've gone to, I get there 10 to 15 minutes early and the instructor is already there. Her showing up when the students are showing up is already off to a bad start, especially since you knew that she had to be there before 10 a.m. Before 10 a.m., in job lingo, is not 9:50. It sounds like if she hadn't rushed you, you probably would have gotten there at 10 exactly or later. OP needs to work on better time management.